For years, innocent civilians have been paying the price of America's war on terror. This time in Kabul, it is no different. Failures in the US intel have led to the killing of an aid worker and members of his family, including children. WION was the first channel to tell you that these were not the ISIS Khorasan targets that the US claimed they were. 48 hours before the August 31 deadline, the US conducted a drone strike in Kabul's Khwaja Bugra area. This was in retaliation to the ISIS Khorasan attack on the Kabul airport, with America claiming it had averted a terror threat. Visuals of the damaged vehicle were put out. The Pentagon claimed that they had hit an ISIS Khorasan target. There was talk about preventing another attack and that a second blast was indicative of the presence of explosives. WION's Anas Malik reached the drone strike site the very next day in the morning, 14 hours after the rockets struck the area. What he saw were harrowing visuals. The place still smelled as if something had just been melted. We even spoke to Emal Ahmadi, the victim's brother. Emal had lost his own daughter in the strike and was grief-stricken by the entire incident. But even then, he told us that the strike was a wrong one and that his brother, Zemirai, was a trained electrical engineer.
Yeah, my name is Emal. That yesterday, unfortunately, I lost my big brother and with three sons, and also I lost one of my small daughters, and one of my brothers lost her 3 child, and also I lost one of my nephew in here. Yeah.
Minutes later, a neighbor at the site told us the same thing. He said the victim was an engineer and had nothing to do with any terror organizations.
This was my best friend's house. He was an engineer and had nothing to do with army or anything. He had nothing to do with Talibs or anyone else either. He was an engineer. 10 people have been killed, including 7 children. There is a lot of fear because of the strike. I came here after 5 minutes. People were lying in a terrible condition. I did my best to take them out.
We even took a look at the vehicle that was targeted in that strike. From human remains to parts of the vehicle, everything was still pretty clearly visible. The victim, Zemirai Ahmadi, was among 10 civilians, including children, whom the US killed that day through a Reaper drone strike in the middle of capital Kabul. One of those killed was from the Afghan army. Nasir Haidari had fought alongside the same US forces that targeted him and was waiting for his special immigrant visa. So what exactly happened on that ill-fated day as Zemirai Ahmadi pulled into the driveway at around 4:30 p.m. His children swarmed around his Toyota Corolla. His 12-year-old son, Farzad, asked if he could park the car. Ahmadi obliged, making Farzad sit in the driver's seat and switching to the passenger side. This was moments before the drone struck the car. 10 people were killed. Among those killed was a 25-year-old nephew who was about to be married, 5 children who were 5 years old or younger. In the driveway, what remained of the vehicle on Monday was a blackened metal, melted plastic, scraps. Ahmadi's brother has now left the house. We visited the house once again to find the door locked. The neighbors there told us that the family had left, but the damaged vehicle still remains inside. But we later caught up with Emal, who now lives with his sister in the capital. He even took us to the Kasaba graveyard, where the victims of the strike are now buried. Emal is a regular visitor at the grave, waiting patiently for justice. He says nobody has contacted him, neither the United States nor the Taliban. He says he has no idea about the investigation and all he wants is justice.
yesterday I heard that investigation is sure that we are an innocent person. Yeah, I heard for the New York Times.
But nobody from Taliban or US has said...
No one's come for investigation.
Right. Yeah. Did the Taliban speak to you over this, or did they come or they say anything?
Just only the first day that happening, the three Taliban come, just only say they hear you and go back.
They did not get in contact?
No, they are not contact, they are not investigate, they are not doing anything with us.
Okay. Did anybody from the US authorities approach you for this, for the investigation?
No one's come.
Nobody from
Nobody come for investigation. Just only reporters come for the New York Times, CCNA, like this. No one's come for investigation. Some plan that I wanna justice for you, say that why they are doing this action, why that they wanna kill 10 members of my family. I wanna justice for them, and I want have some decide that I wanna talking with him.
US President Joe Biden had promised to hunt terrorists down. He promised to make them pay. But it looks like with the failure of American intelligence, Afghans are paying the price of Biden's failed promises.
This is the grave of Zamarai, who was an engineer working with an international firm. Zamarai was targeted by a US drone strike on the 29th of August. In Kabul's Kasaba graveyard, 9 more of his family members are buried alongside him. Those of his family members who are left demand justice from the United States. They also say that they have not heard both from the Taliban and from the United States on the matter of the probe and investigations of this wrongly done drone strike. Anas Malik in Kabul, Afghanistan, for WION World is One.
And with us on the broadcast this minute is our correspondent Anas Malik from Kabul. Also with us is our correspondent Susan Teherani, joining us from New York. First to you, Anas, you visited that drone strike site the very next morning. You've also been speaking to those family members. Elaborate for us what they've been telling you.
Well, yes, Molly, I was there right after the drone strike, 13 hours after the drone strike, and one thing that was there, I could smell that there was a burning sensation that was around in the area. I saw pretty grim visuals, those which were very, very graphic. Human flesh was there, teeth were lying around, human tooths were lying around. We saw the damaged structure of the car. We saw the damaged car. We tried to find some of the signs of ball bearings and other things that could have been possibly be there as a sign of a secondary explosion, but it was not there. I've been covering conflicts, I've been covering wars, and I've been covering explosions as well. The explosive has this subtle smell, but there was no smell of explosive that could be found in that particular in that particular area, or in that particular house. 10 people were killed in that drone strike. Zamarai Ahmadi, the 37-year-old engineer, was the apparent target. He was the person who was driving the car. Among others were 2 more adults. One, Nasir Hedri, who was serving with the Afghan National Army. The 28-year-old, he had served with the US forces as well at their consulate in Herat and at their bases in Herat as well. This is what has been told to me by Ahmadi's brother, Emal Ahmadi. Then we saw among the others were the 20-year-old son of Emarzai, Zamir Ahmadi, and then there is a list of young children, 1 teenager and another 6 who were killed in this drone strike. The family has been complaining that they want justice. I spoke to the brother today, and he said that he would be using social media, digital media platforms to ensure that they get justice, because the US does not have any presence in Afghanistan. As we speak, they're also awaiting their SIV visas. They had applied for it about 15 days ago, and they believe that they were eligible for that. They were awaiting that when this unfortunate strike took place and took away almost the entire family. Molly?
Right, stay with me, Anas. Susan, multiple question marks have already been raised over American intelligence, earlier also to do with the Kabul takeover and the prediction that had been spelled out by the US intel. Specifically, when it comes to these developments, any reaction coming in from the US government or from the Pentagon? All right, we'll just go back across to Susan Tehrani. For those of you just joining us, this is the latest that we have when it comes to the US drone strike that took place in capital Kabul. The failures in US intel, huge question marks over whether or not they have led to the killing of an aid worker and members of his family, including children. Remember, WION was the first to point out that these were not the ISIS Khorasan targets that the US had claimed that they were. In fact, we've been getting you ground reports, piecing together the accounts that have been coming in from the family members as well. Also reports from the site of the drone strike. Our correspondent Anas Malik has visited that drone strike site the very next morning. In fact, this drone strike came just 48 hours before the August 31 deadline, when the US had conducted a drone strike in Kabul's Khwaja Bugra area. This was in retaliation to the ISIS Khorasan target on the airport, with the US claiming that it had averted a terror threat. Anas, also when we talk about what you saw at the drone strike site, the melted vehicle, you also have been speaking to the family members. If you can narrate for us and elaborate on what you saw at the drone strike site the very next morning.
Well, to firstly elaborate, the area, the vicinity, Khwaja Bugra is a middle-class vicinity where you would see people from the middle class or the lower middle class residing there. It's in close proximity to the airport. About 5.5 kilometers is the airport, while it's in the northwest of Kabul and very near to the north gate of the Kabul airport. It's very near to the new Ministry of Interior as well, and the Ministry of Interior hospital. The lanes are there. You have to navigate through the lanes. You see big electricity poles in the area. And once you actually make it to that very house, it's a small house, about 120 yards or probably lesser in surface area and size. It's a two-story house that where I was at, which was targeted. Zamarai with his brother's family, Imal, they used to live together in that very house, which is a 3-bedroom house. Their children used to live with them as well. There were 2 cars that were parked. One was a mini SUV that was on towards the left in the driveway or in the garage, and one was his Toyota Corolla, which Zamarai used to drive, and he used to commute on. He left at around 8:30 in the morning that ill-fated day. He went to the office. He picked up 2 different of his colleagues, and then on the way back, he stopped by to pick to collect water in cans and canisters, because there is a water supply issue in that particular area. And as he got back, his son Farid, he wanted to basically get the park the car himself. So Zamarai had acknowledged that some of his own children, at least 3 of them, and his other cousins' children, they also got along in the car, and then his brother's children also got along in the car. Some children were playing near the car, some children were inside the car, and so his son was parking the car. As we saw, or as the US missile struck that car, there was this person, Nasir Hedri, who was preparing for namaz at that point of time, and he got hit as well. And in just a blink of an eye, the car was burned. There was no secondary explosion. That has been emphasized by the family. It has been corroborated by neighbors as well. I was there the next day. As I said, I could not smell any explosives that might have triggered due to the first explosion. As I said, I've been covering conflicts. I've been covering past as well. So it was certainly not the case that a secondary explosion might have just caused it. Then we saw right after that there were reports on the 29th of August that there was a rocket attack, and that was confirmed by Ministry of Health officials as well. But soon after, we saw a Reuters news agency first coming with this flash that a US drone strike had targeted. This was the first of its kind drone strike in the capital city of Kabul. Molly?
Anas Malik, thanks very much for those comprehensive updates. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.